Oops, I got disconnected at the worst possible time. um, Welcome everyone to this week's magnificent Nym community call. Once again, we're going to have an AMA, and first you were faced with our surprise guest, who's now a returning guest on Nym community calls. I have Jack Wempler with me today. How is it going, sir?
It's going very well. Excited to have a quick chat and yeah, answer some questions. It's been an interesting time.
Excellent, very interesting time indeed. And if you don't remember Jack, guys, he's working at Nym on censorship resistance, and he's a censorship researcher. So I thought it would be a very timely conversation for us here, both to talk a little bit about censorship resistance on Nym. Or like at Nym and on NymVPN, and also just some general world events these days. We'll get into that in a bit. First of all, big thanks to everybody for joining us today. It's shaping up to be an excellent call. Most of it is going to be an AMA as announced, so make sure to leave your questions here in the YouTube or Twitch chats. We're keeping a close eye, and also if you don't want to log in with your YouTube account or Twitch account to compromise your privacy, you can also leave your questions on the general chat of the Nym Matrix server, where we'll also keep an eye. Yeah, maybe let's start actually with let's get out the Sudo things. Let's get them out of the way. So as you know, this background was selected by you guys. We tested together the brand new Governator, the Nym Governator. So for those of you who missed it, we are introducing NIPs, which are Nym improvement proposals. This is a major step towards decentralization and collective decision making. And NIP1 and NIP2, which are our first governance proposals, we're going to vote on together, are going live today. NIP1 is already live, actually. I had trouble posting NIP2, so I will do that after the community call. Let me give you a link to NIP1. This is just about the governance process itself. And yes, there it is. There's your link. And NIP2 will also be posted today. And as a test for the new system, you guys selected Rick's Garage as my background for today. You're going to be voting on my background every time, so I'm gonna let you guys decide every time. But we're not going to use the Governator because only node operators get to vote on the Governator, and I want everybody to be able to participate and decide my background. So it will happen on the forum going forward. Yeah, just to mention what Beyond is pointing out in chat, a normal T-shirt, right? This T-shirt is from the Roblox squad. When I visited Ukraine, that's when I got it from them. So I thought it would be an appropriate, attire for this lovely community call. All right, Jack. While we're waiting for community questions, that was my bit. So let's get started with your bit, and I can't wait to ask you this question. So, a bit of context. Ladies and gentlemen, we're shooting this, we're streaming this on the 26th of June, 2025. So we're, I think, now 14 days into the now hot war between Israel and Iran, which came with a bunch of bombings, both now from the United States, but also from Israel, to supposedly disable nuclear sites and to assassinate various people in the Iranian government. Now, what this came with, and why Jack is the right person to have on this call with me and ask a few questions from, is because we saw, you'll know more details than I do, Jack, but we saw a complete internet blackout in Iran, right? So this makes me wonder, like, how does one go about blacking out the internet? It's a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so it has been, like you said, about 14 days since the initial kickoff of all of these things, and through that process, Iran has been reporting and undergoing pretty severe cyber security attacks as well, alongside with the physical attacks. And so, in response to both that and also wartime communications, they've tried to sort of shore up their control of the national domestic networks that they run, and several of the largest ISPs are owned and operated by the government in Iran. So they really have put a lot of effort and money over the last decades into building out that infrastructure to control and you know, make sure that in times exactly like this, they can have a technical hold on what people can and cannot access, what communications do and do not go through. So, it starts with a heightened level of the censorship that we see typically in Iran. Limiting more limitations on access to the websites, the services that citizens can access, more limitations on the protocols that can be used, trying to reduce the usage of VPNs, things like that. But when we get to that most extreme level, where they really want to sort of like push the reset button, put everything on pause, what they'll do is they will basically just stop the flow of traffic, right? Because the way the Iranian network is set up, you have an internet exchange in Tehran, and really just one ISP that all of the national internet service providers funnel through in order to get to the international network links. So when they get to that most extreme level, they'll start dialing down all of the connectivity that goes out of that international link. And that is an extreme measure, right? Like you're shutting off international business, international finance. It is really a huge impact on both like the economy and people's lives. So, we only see it in the most extreme times, but I think that's what this is.
Definitely is the most extreme time. I think an apt description. So then, I mean, that's what happened in Iran, right? How governments go about shutting down the whole internet? Can we generalize in the first place, or is it it depends on the country? Or sorry if I'm asking a question which is not answered yet. I guess this is a pretty complex topic. Patterns or trends in how governments go about disabling the internet? Do they go for like a full internet blackout, or do they mostly go just for blocking certain tools, etc., etc.?
So yeah, I mean it's on a scale, and I think that the framework to put it in a lot of the time is in sort of like the economic collateral that comes with blocking, where blocking access to sites that they deem to be against the law, or access to circumvention tools, is a pretty low collateral effort most of the time. When you start to get into blocking things that could be consumer traffic, it could be interfering with infrastructure, like for example, power grids run on the internet, they're networked. So like if you start to block that kind of traffic, you raise that collateral risk. And so most countries haven't pushed even close to that. Iran is kind of a special case where they started testing with fully disconnecting and going into this offline domestic only mode, in like the late aughts, early 2010s, and they've now done this a handful of times. Most recently with protests in 2019, previous to this. But they're not the only ones who are experimenting with it. Russia is also interested in having the ability to take its network domestic only, remove those international links. And Egypt is also another example of a country taking the internet during protests completely into this offline domestic only state. So it's not unheard of, and it's not terribly technically advanced. I mean, like it's challenging in that like you're making an aggressive change to the way that people are able to access the internet and conduct business. But yeah, in certain situations, it's worth it in the eyes of the people making those decisions.
This actually makes me wonder. This is a bit off topic from censorship. This is more like a dictatorship or authoritarian control sort of question. But what's the point in making so? when you want to stop the internet, as I don't know, as Egypt or Iran or whichever government it may be, are you trying to? My understanding so far has been, let's put it this way, has been that that they are trying to shut people down or like stop people from organizing and like contacting each other, right? And if you take, so what's the value of taking the internet domestic only in that case? Am I missing something here?
So I think
They
it
can
removes
still connect like devices
variables.
on the local. Sorry, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just clarifying, but I think you understand the question.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. I think the majority thing that in times of crisis, most people want to check in on family members, community members, check in and make sure that everyone is safe, figure out where everyone is, try to coordinate, uh, evacuation plans, those sorts of things. And that's a majority of people. What I think governments worry about is coordination for protests, coordination for if someone if opposition movements are using circumvention tools for communications, strategic communications. They we saw in Iran claims from the government that there were drones being controlled using like WhatsApp, and whether or not that's valid, it's a reason for them to try to prevent people from using those communication tools.
Yeah, sounds a bit sus. Controlled through WhatsApp. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. But yeah, maybe someone could hack a solution like that. Anyways, interesting times. Maybe let's talk about. So I guess if there is if I understand you correctly, in Iran at least, we have like the central connection in Tehran, right, which distributes internet connection to the global WWW to the population, right? I guess if the government decides to pull the plug on that, then there's not much, for example, a VPN can do to circumvent that, right? Or is that like a complete total shutdown?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's no when you get to that level, there's no through that specific route to the internet. There's no trick or solution or transport tool that's going to um, you know send bytes when no bytes are being sent, right? Like, uh, but even in that situation, even the situation that we've seen in Iran recently, there are some small exceptions. And so the first I would mention is that um, Iran has seen a large deployment of like satellite link connections, be it Starlink or other competitors, where users are maintaining these satellite dishes that can then connect as an alternate route out to the internet. Right, so now you're not going through that you know funneled ISP link out through the internet exchange to Germany or Turkey or wherever they're connected. You're going through the satellite link up to Starlink and then off to some data center to be routed from there. So that continued to work through the blackout. So that's another route that your traffic could take. And then another thing is, even in these like most extreme blackout situations, or at least in this one specifically, and in 2019 as well, we saw that um, the Iranian government left access to a small number of things available, most likely because they're using them themselves, and taking them offline would make the process of restarting the network significantly harder for them, on the back end, because they can't leave the network disconnected forever. They can't leave it domestic only. It's just too high of a cost. But they'll do it for a couple days, a week, and just to reiterate, like the total blackout that we saw this time only lasted like 2 days. It was the 19th, 20th, and then it ended on the 21st. And the heightened limitations were still in place after that, and to a certain degree still are. But even during that total blackout, they were still allowing DNS traffic to flow in and out of the country, because DNS is that sort of like base level for bootstrapping network infrastructure.
Just for those who may not be aware, so what is DNS connection? What does DNS stand for, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so DNS is the domain name system. So you can think of it sort of like a phone book, right? So if I want to talk to a friend using a phone, I know their name, but that doesn't mean I can call them. So I need some translation from their name to their phone number, so that I can, you know, form this telephone call and start talking. So that's exactly what DNS is for the internet, right? Like I know google.com, I know the name of the website that I want to go to, but I don't know the IP address that it's at. I don't know where the servers are to try and go start that communication. So DNS is a global distributed system for resolving those domain names into IP addresses that the internet knows how to route.
So basically, um, yeah, it turns your like URLs, which are easy to remember. You can remember google.com, but you can't remember, I don't know, 235.202 dot something something. That's a bit harder. So this is why DNS was created. It became a pretty central part of the internet. It also became a pretty central part of surveillance and sort of control in a lot of ways. But let's not open that kind of worms, or unless you want to, Jack. I'm happy to.
I mean, sure, it's still one of it's a plain text protocol, right? So like if I'm trying to resolve the name google.com, I send a request that includes google.com in regular, readable letters, not encoded. And anyone in the network path that's resolving that address can send me a spoofed response. And so there's efforts to fix this, and we've taken steps to make sure that this doesn't impact. Like it's not a censorship technique that affects the NymVPN at the moment, for example. But it is still sort of this like really base layer of the internet that like you have to have that for a lot of the services that you use every day. I mean, everyone's computer is doing DNS. There's no exception. You can't use the internet without doing DNS.
Yeah, you definitely can't. But you mentioned this VPN, which I heard about before, NymVPN. So maybe let's talk about censorship resistance, because there is quite a bit of ongoing work between Anya and yourself for censorship resistance. Maybe Salazar could dig up a link to our previous conversation on this community call, which was, I think, in March, maybe February, somewhere in that time frame. Obviously, a lot has happened since then. Can we just talk about where we are on the roadmap, and what's still in store for censorship resistance for NymVPN?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are making progress. We've been working on building a really strong base layer, making sure that all of the Nym infrastructure is resilient to the really common forms of censorship, and then trying to start to sort of like where we're at is getting all the base layer applied and included in the like the NymVPN, the different tools that we use, and then the next step in the roadmap that we had talked about previously is starting to sort of stockpile some protocol tools. Right now, the NymVPN operates using the Amnesia WireGuard protocol, but that's just one protocol. And it was one of the things that kind of unfortunate was that one of the first things that the Iranian censorship mechanisms blocked was UDP, just because a lot of circumvention tools use UDP, and so we got caught up in that. So just pretty early on, the NymVPN protocol got caught in that censorship, just because we haven't reached that step in our roadmap to stockpile those different strategies to make it so that if one connection type gets blocked, there's another that is able to keep users connected to the internet. So we're building that base layer, and that base layer is really starting to be rolled out to the production clients, and the configurations are built into our production environment. And we're starting to step into stockpiling those strategies so that it's sort of like the Hydra head, right? Like you cut off one connection type, and then another one's available to keep you connected.
Yeah, as we spoke about again, guys, I recommend one of my personal favorite community call episodes so far was the one on censorship resistance with Jack and Anya. It was a really fascinating deep dive, and as we explained there, it's really a cat and mouse game, and it's not as simple as censorship resistance installed or engaged. It's very much a back and forth and a cat and mouse game between those who want to censor and those who want to resist that censorship. Now, you mentioned something, just to clarify for those who may be noobs like myself. You mentioned UDP. It's a protocol. What is it, and how is it different from I don't know, TCP? I guess is the alternative.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So a majority of the traffic on the internet.
Wait a second. Look at this. Like when I drink, look. Wait. No, it didn't work. But you can see like a enlarged version of my mouth. Sorry, I found it hilarious. Works like this. sorry, Jack. Go ahead. I interrupted.
No, that's all right. So TCP is the transmission control protocol, and that gives you, when you're talking over the internet, it gives you some structure to your conversation. Like you can think of connections over the internet as like basically a phone call, but you're sending data, and you have to sort of decide: do I want to have a structured conversation, or do I want to have an unstructured conversation? So TCP is our structured conversation where I say hello and you say hello back, and then I say, here's some data. Did you receive it? And you say, I received your data, and I'll give that data onward. So it gives you some nice features of, guaranteeing that the person you're talking to is there and making sure that they receive all the messages that you've sent, and having a clean open and close to the connection. And also like rate limiting the amount of data that you're sending to be sort of respectful to all the routers and people you're talking to. UDP is unstructured data, so you don't apply any of those extra features to the traffic. It's just data. You're just sending data. You're not waiting for the other side to tell you that they've received it. You don't have necessarily like a hello, I'm listening. You're sending data or receiving data. And so there's nice things on both sides, and there's limitations on both sides too, right? In TCP, you can imagine that like the structure is overhead, and the rate limiting makes it not ideal for applications like video or live streaming, where you don't want to be going through all this extra work because it slows everything down. Whereas UDP, you lose packets. If something gets dropped, it's gone forever, and you don't get any indication that it was not seen by the other side, which maybe is useful for something like video, where we're having our live stream, the connection suffers a little bit, you drop a frame. Okay, there's one piece of the video that is missed, but it's a live stream, so it's going forward anyways. Whereas like I'm loading a website, I don't want to miss any piece of that website. It might break, it might render wrong. I really do want to receive every piece of data in order, in the proper format. So you have like TCP and UDP, and in the context of VPNs, UDP is nice because it lets you define your own mechanisms for managing all those features of like opening a connection, managing throughput, closing connections. And so that's why things like WireGuard and WebRTC are written to use the UDP protocol. But again, UDP is known to not be used for like those critical website loading, Google search, energy infrastructure. This is not usually done over UDP because like you want those protocols to be reliable. So UDP often does get blocked pretty early on in censorship instances.
Interesting. So I now understand much better why UDP is sort of really optimal for VPNs, or that kind of structured. Here's my handshake. Here's me. I'm sending this on. But it's like you can define all of that stuff within your encrypted tunnel. Very interesting. And then
Exactly.
it also makes sense that it's like a lot of VPN traffic will naturally be UDP. Very little of the other type of traffic, which would be critical, you can just shut down, such as power grid control and all of that stuff, is definitely not UDP. So then it's a very easy step to like shut off UDP in this case, and then get rid of like any unwanted encrypted stuff on your network, including up to and including communicating with the World Wide Web. Interesting. I learned something today. I learned a lot today, but this is what I would point out. Actually, we have a couple of community questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to focus first on the ones related to censorship, censorship resistance, all of that good stuff, since we have Jack with us, the man himself. So if you have any questions related to that, I'm going to be prioritizing those. We have two so far. I'll start with Bump here. Thanks for the question, Bump. Always a pleasure. It is clear that the WireGuard protocol is not effective for Russia and China. Are you considering implementing new protocols? At the moment, the VLAS slash reality protocol is performing very well in Russia.
So yes, WireGuard and specifically Amnesia WireGuard does make some adjustments to the WireGuard protocol to make it a little more censorship resistant, and that has we've seen helped to keep users connected in several of those networks in Russia, for example, where vanilla WireGuard is blocked, but Amnesia, the Amnesia modifications still allow those connections to work. So we already support a protocol that does this to a certain degree. But you're right, Amnesia is not like the silver bullet, and it is, not working in China and not working in Iran, at least not consistently. And so we are looking into adding those, and that's sort of what I was talking about earlier with the place that we're at in the roadmap and building out those extra toolset options for protocols that users can use. And so the V2Ray toolset is a great toolset. VLS, Reality, the TLS tools. These are all things that we're looking at adding. And I think that the best strategy here, and the strategy that we're taking, is not to sort of pick a protocol that's working somewhere and tie ourselves to that protocol. What we're trying to do is make it possible to support many of these protocols, so that something works in China, we can leverage that while it's working, but still be ready to pivot. Something else is working in Iran or in some of the networks in Iran. We can make that available to those users and keep them online at the same time. So we're looking at adding a bunch of these different protocols, I guess is the answer to your question.
Question, a clarifying question. You mentioned a bunch of tools, or tool sets, toolkits, was it? And protocols. Are these terms interchangeable, or is there a difference?
Yeah, exactly. I'm using those terms interchangeably. And maybe that's not entirely fair, because you could use tools to describe like the actual VPNs that are like, there are deployments of V2Ray and those protocols that they're their own like tool set, in that they provide an entire VPN you can install. Same thing with like Amnesia WireGuard. But I'm specifically referring to like the protocols.
All right. So I have a follow-up question to this. This will be my question, guys. I can monopolize the AMA because I'm the host, so deal with it. I can just do it. Follow-up question to you. We have a pretty big community both in Russia and in China. And obviously, we have people from all around the world, including regions where censorship is very prevalent, pervasive. So for now, it's a hit or miss, right? The VPN censorship resistance. What would you say is like an update, or maybe like a time frame where you can say that some major improvements are to be expected in the general experience of the most censored regions? If you have one off the top of your head, don't have to answer, but it would be nice.
Sure. I guess I'll refer back two parts to this. First, I'll refer back to the timeline that we've discussed for the censorship resistance efforts that we're adding, and we're really looking in the third quarter of this year to get like one really strong extra censorship protocol added on top of the Amnesia WireGuard. So have one other option, a first like extra protocol that we could swap to or use in those environments. And then in the fourth quarter, sort of by the end of the year, we're hoping to have a couple more protocols. And so then in that timeline, we have like the strong base that we've been building, keeping like the Nym infrastructure available to users in censored environments that then they can leverage to use VPN to get connected. And so the plan is, and the work that we have underway is moving towards having one more protocol, hoping that we understand should be working in China and should be working in a number of the networks in Russia, available sort of by the end of Q3. The asterisk, the part two to this, is that censorship isn't static. And, we're working on, in quarter three, adding a protocol that we, as of right now, works in places like China and Russia. But, as we saw in Iran over the past 2 weeks, that can change really rapidly as to what works and what doesn't work. And that's why we're trying to get, by the end of the year, to this place where we have, some ability to be a little bit flexible, a little bit dynamic in the response that we provide for users.
That's excellent news. So you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to see major improvements, expect those in terms of censorship resistance. Expect those within the upcoming quarter, which is really nice to hear. Now, I just a last monopolizing question before we jump back into the AMA. Can we talk about just you already listed most of them, the countries with the capability to, like, with the central connection hub which they can just cut off and then connection is lost to the World Wide Web. This is from what I understand, Russia. Is China also one of these countries? Iran definitely. What else?
Yeah, so it's a little bit unique because every country has their internet set up in kind of, or it grew in a unique environment. So Iran, for example, has had this control for a long time because of the way that they structured their internet in the early 2000s to be routed through this single like link to the international internet, right? So like that was a choice that they actively made so that they could try to apply their censorship techniques in that spot as traffic is transiting out to the global internet. Russia is like, yes, they've been experimenting with taking like the ability to take the entire network domestic only, but it's a completely different network because the Russian internet sort of developed at the time after the fall of like the Soviet Union. So a lot of the internet service providers that popped up at the time were completely independent. And since that time, the Russian government has been sort of working to coalesce those under a bigger and bigger umbrella, but you don't have like a national internet service provider that can just turn off the internet. You have to have a lot of coordination between all of these independent parties. And that those are, again, both different from China, where the Chinese government runs the biggest ISPs in China, and especially the international links. But there isn't sort of like one egress point. The Chinese internet has egresses and ingresses to everything surrounding it. And so there isn't quite as uniform a place to just turn the off button or like push a button and turn things off. And we actually, I don't believe we've ever seen the Chinese network even attempt something like taking the internet domestic only. So, places in smaller countries, this may also be possible in places like Turkmenistan, Myanmar, where we do see sort of extreme censorship techniques applied. but I'm not as familiar with the history of their internet infrastructure.
Very fascinating stuff. I will have to do a deep dive into this. It's very interesting, especially since my home country, Hungary, which is like in a really rapid path towards authoritarianism these days, is also like government, like people close to the government and the regime are buying all the internet service providers, which is sort of makes me a bit sweaty, especially now that you explain all of this. Anyways, thanks for the answers, and sorry guys for monopolizing the AMA. Guess you'll have to deal with it. Back to community questions. Next one is from Rocio, our beloved community contributor. Thank you for the question. What's the one thing the average person can do to resist censorship beyond just complaining about it? To be clear, it's not beyond our community member complaining about it. What she means is that besides or just more than complaining about it, haha, I know I'm hilarious. What are the practical steps?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of pieces here. I think one is just by participating in these communities, you get a sense of like what is going on. You're giving feedback to what your perspective is, right? Like it's difficult from the outside or from like a remote viewing point to understand exactly what is happening in like a real time situation. So I mean, to give basically the example of Iran, we can see from the outside as access to services start to dwindle, as access to VPNs start to dwindle, we can see things going down in metrics, but we don't really understand, why, first of all, and we don't have a great understanding of like timeline or like access from the internal, what it looks like from the internal perspective, right? So having like the ability to communicate and just talking through what you're seeing, what is still working, what isn't working, is super useful information. And that doesn't take really any technical know-how. Another thing is diversifying with trusted tools, right? Like we're working to make NymVPN a great circumvention tool. I think at the moment it's a great anonymity tool, and we're working to make it a great circumvention tool as well. But there are lots of good circumvention tools. The V2Ray protocol suite was mentioned earlier. Siphon does a great job with keeping users online, trying a number of different protocols. They're great people that we work with. And so like knowing which of those tools is working, or understanding like how people are being able to like access those tools even through these circumvention or these censorship events is important, right? Like one of the hardest things I think during this Iranian shutdown is, if you didn't already have a VPN installed and the network is starting to go offline, how do you get a VPN installed, right? Play Store and F-Droid were blocked, and Apple Store were blocked. So you need to start thinking about like what is available and what do you trust to install on your device, and how do we get people access to those? And a lot of that is community channels. So I think just being an active part of the community, understanding like what is like a trustworthy piece, and like what is how do we build those networks of trust so that when something like this happens, we can start to leverage that trust and make sure people stay online.
Yes. Very good points, especially about community. I mean, obviously, that's kind of close to my heart. What I would add here, and I'm super curious what you think, it doesn't solve the connecting to the World Wide Web or like the global internet problem, but it can contribute to it. Mesh networks, I believe they are. So mesh networks are, just for those who don't know, it's basically an app or some kind of protocol that you can install on your mobile device. You can install in your router, even in some cases. And for example, in case of an emergency, right, when internet cuts out, you can device to device connect at least to each other. So you can create like a local mesh network. And if one of those nodes is connected to the internet, maybe in the case of Iran, there's let's say someone there's someone with a satellite connection through what's the name? Why do I forget the name? Star
Starlink,
what? Starlink.
Starlink.
Thank you. Yes. Starlink or something else, then that connection can be shared with a bunch of other devices. But the problem with this is that it's only as powerful as many people have it on their devices by the time the incident happens or by the time the catastrophe happens. So I would actually make this part of operating systems just to have like mesh network capabilities, and obviously governments who like to censor and take control of the internet would maybe want to stop that. But at least people would know that it exists, and it would be more widespread on devices, and they could take steps to enable these tools. What do you think about mesh networks as a solution to censorship, or a possible way to improve censorship?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great strategy, especially in situations like we saw over the last 2 weeks in Iran. And I will say that another one of the things that was seen to be working and reported to be working by people in Iran is like the mesh networks, peer-to-peer communication type things, where like if you had a matrix or like peer-to-peer chat application set up ahead of time on infrastructure hosted within the domestic internet, those chat applications continued working through even the most like extreme shutdown that we saw. So Matrix, I think Delta Chat was another one where it is entirely peer to peer. It's run, distributed based on the people's devices that it's installed on in the network that it's operating in. And I mean, it's this exact same idea of if you have the ability to route through peers in your network, you can keep communication online. You can keep, to a certain degree, traffic, internet access online, as long as if there is a route to the outside internet. Yeah.
What about torrents? It's also peer to peer, right? And I guess it's also like if you don't have in country something like seeds from within the country of something, then obviously it's not going to help if you make available something via torrents. But maybe if you do have local seeds, then you could like spread something like an NymVPN APK or something via torrents. What do you think about that? Is it too risky because anybody could do it and it's hard to verify?
No, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. You can't really, if there's no access to the outside internet, you can't get something that someone doesn't already have inside the network. So it has to be something that someone has the ability to share. But as long as we can provide like that root of trust where someone can validate that this is a version of the VPN that the Nym team produced and signed, and you can double check that against like the public keys that we put out, and we have cryptographic ways of doing this. Then it is. I mean, it's a great way of sharing tools around and making sure that people can keep access to that. And to a certain degree, like that also looks like having a Matrix chat server set up and then people sharing that APK over chat, and then you can check that it's legitimate. But yeah, it is definitely an option. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for the answer. Now we got to do a bit of quick fire rounds. We have a lot of great questions and not a lot of great time. So I mean, we do have great time, but not much of it. So let's uh, let's address. I have to still ask this because this is about censorship resistance. Once again, Maximilian Song, big thanks for the question. In my city in China, I cannot load server list and log into my account because China blocks the API. Is there any way to help API bypass censorship? We're talking about the NymVPN API.
Yeah. So this speaks directly to a lot of work that we've been doing, and we're working on getting into production sort of at the moment. The the API hardening that we've been doing and as part of our roadmap is expected to be into the client in early Q3, and that should help with specifically the access to the API and making sure that the logins and the connections that sort of interact with the API to get tokens and to do sort of the account controller management steps, server lists should be pretty resistant to that blocking. So that's part of the stuff we're working on literally right now. Beyond that, we talked earlier a little bit about the protocols that are and are not working in China. So the MixNet with the solutions that we're working on for API hardening, the MixNet should work in China at the moment. Amnesia WireGuard is going to be a lot more hit or miss, and that's the work that we're planning for Q3 is to start to address that and make sure that we can get users connected to the DVPN mode into the fast mode and give them a good browsing experience.
Excellent. That's really, really nice to hear. Thanks for the answer, and also a big thanks for the question, Maximilian. Next up, also censorship related question, and then I promise we can jump into the not censorship resistance or censorship related ones. So Lyrex is asking, thanks for a great question. Also great profile picture, by the way. A lot of websites block you when using a VPN, MixNet, or proxy. How to get around it? This is super annoying. I think it's the wrong position to take from a website. You can understand their perspective to some extent because I guess a lot of bad things are happening through VPNs as well. But it should be actually welcome that people are using VPNs, especially in the current environment that we have on the internet. Anyways, that's a long rant. What do you think about this question? How to best get around VPN blocks and MixNet blocks and proxy blocks?
Yeah, so this is kind of a hard one because if you think about like the nature of a VPN, a lot of the times, what you're really doing is you're asking someone else to send your traffic for you, right? Like, and the Nym VPN, you're making sure that the person sending your traffic doesn't know who you are, so your identity is completely separated from what you're browsing, and that's sort of like that strong anonymity piece. But when we're running that VPN, the server side that's doing that browsing for you, a lot of that is hosted as like a server, right? It's a service that someone is running, and it's running generally in a data center. And not a lot of people live in data centers, so when websites get incoming traffic that they can see is coming from a data center, it tends to be pretty easy for them to categorize it as like, oh, this isn't an actual human, or like this isn't the first hop that this human is taking to reach our service. And so the solution I guess there is a couple solutions. One solution is that with the larger diversity of nodes and exits available, there's a larger chance that some of them are hosted in places that don't get recognized as VPNs or blocked in the same way. So having more volunteers running exits is always a good thing. The second piece is that you have the possibility of running nodes in like residential IP space, so that you remove that easy filtering mechanism that a lot of websites use of like, oh, this couldn't possibly be the first hop of a real human's traffic because like it's not coming from consumer internet, it's coming from a data center. And residential IPs come with their own set of challenges, but it is something that we would love to incorporate, and we're, I think, working on building into the engineering plan. So that sort of makes it a much more organic browsing experience when like you're exiting from a consumer internet service provider.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky though, residential IPs, because I guess it needs a static IP address, which not a lot of providers give you and not a lot of people have, and a bunch of other things. But regardless of that, it would be very nice to have residential IPs. Sorry, right. You were about to say something.
No, just you're exactly right. I mean, there's engineering challenges. A lot of consumer IP space is NATed also. So like in my home, for example, I have a router. My router gives me a private IP. you can't browse to my router or my computer from the public internet, which makes it bad to use as a server. And there's a lot of engineering that you have to do to get around that and make those work. So it's something we would love to do, but I think it's something that has a relatively high challenge factor to deliver.
Excellent. That's nice to hear. I hope it's on someday we're going to be implementing this. All right. Next up, from Beyond, the aforementioned Beyond. Thanks for the question. Governator works quite well. Use it when deciding on grant proposals in NSL. Short answer, in its current form, no. So what Governator does right now is it allows node operators to vote, right? And the votes are weighted in proportion to the stake that a node operator has. And when it comes to voting about the Nym Squad League and voting about the Squad Wealth Fund, the stakeholdership is different, right? It's not really a node operator question. A bunch of our node operators are not even very involved in these questions, so there's a mismatch there. I would say the community as a whole is more stakeholder in the Squad Wealth Fund. So in its current form, no. Maybe it will be changed to accommodate for this kind of voting. But instead of that, if it ends up happening, we still haven't decided on this proposal that came out, the DAO sitting proposal. Maybe Salazar could find a link to it, please, and share it in chat. Decidim, this platform that the NSO squad from Spain is proposing to implement for Nym. It's a participatory governance framework, participatory governance system. For example, if this ends up getting implemented, that's where I would see NSL-related voting happening rather than the Governator. So this is still an undecided question, but no, for the time being, we'll definitely not vote on this kind of stuff using Governator. Next up is also from Beyond, also a question about Governator. So do you plan to use Governator for community decision-making and marketing activities? For example, choosing between bloggers to order advertising from or adding promote VPN? Well, same answer from before applies here. And also it's worth keeping in mind that there are things that we would want to vote about that are like part of the network side of things, or things like the Squad Wealth Fund and spending decisions from the Squad Wealth Fund and all of that good stuff. But when it comes to marketing things, like choosing between bloggers or ordering advertising, I don't know if that's something that is reasonable to put up for public voting. So I don't think we'll see this, especially not in Governator. Thanks for the question, Beyond. Next up, also from Beyond. Do you have any data on this? Is an exciting question. Do you have any data on the number of new NymVPN users after the launch of the Earlybirds promo? The number itself is a secret. Perhaps there is a percentage of new users with a period before the promo. As you point out, you already asked questions like this, so you hit the nail on the head. We cannot share the exact numbers because of competitor reasons, right? We can't share this information. What I can hopefully share with you, and hopefully Rob will not kill me after this call, is that shortly after we launched the Earlybird campaign, saw the highest number of single-day purchases. So it's definitely working out pretty well. Grab it while it lasts, ladies and gentlemen. There's an 80% discount on the 2-year plan, and this is the lowest the price will ever be. And this is also like a way for us to show appreciation towards all of you guys who are here with us, even though the product is in a very early state. It does give you bulletproof privacy, but you as many of you know, you bump into all kinds of issues for the time being, which we are fixing diligently. But for you to be here, we really appreciate that, and for this reason, we're going to be running this promo for a bit longer. So thanks for the question. Hopefully that's exciting news to you. Anything to add there? I don't want to lock you out from answering these, Jack.
No, I mean, I think that's exactly it. We really appreciate the people who are installing, reporting issues for us to fix and make the experience better for everyone.
Exactly. We have some serial reporters who send us logs with all kinds of extra details, very detailed error reports. Really, just huge thanks, guys. This is very helpful for the dev team, and it really helps us make NymVPN on all platforms a better tool. So big thanks to everyone who reports issues to us in such great detail, and also big thanks for everyone for sticking with us. All right. Thanks for the question, Beyond. Next up is from Rocio. Question is simple. What's new for the Nymsters in this new NSL season? So the new NSL season hasn't started yet technically, Rocio. It's only starting from next month, so from July. But of course, it's almost here. Not a lot of new things are going to happen as the season kicks off. If you want to peek behind the scenes, sort of the things that are happening behind the scenes, you may want to check out our UX revamp process that we're working with a new contributor on, which is already in progress, by the way, which is going to look at the whole user experience of the Nym Squad League end to end. It identifies pain points, it identifies missing information, it identifies points of friction, and we're going to be, throughout this next season, we're going to be implementing the recommendations that come out of this project. For example, that's going to be a change. So we're more, it looks like NSL is really working for what it already does, and now we're stopping to sort of rethink a bunch of bits and pieces, not trying to add anything new, but we're trying to make the things that are already there much easier to use, make much more sense to you guys, and just overall make them into a more coherent whole. So this is where my mind is at right now. This is what's going to happen for the next season, and I'm not really putting a lot of time into thinking about new things. But of course, if you have an idea for a campaign or maybe some funky thing that we could do or add to NSL summer season, then make sure to let me know, and of course I'll consider it. Thanks for the question, Rocio. Wait, let me look. Yes, we have some more questions from Beyond. Yeah, so this one. I've been thinking, Beyond says, can we make seasons in NSL that are dedicated to a particular area of pop culture, like they do in Fortnite? Okay, we could actually do this. It's just a bunch of world building. I initially wanted to launch, I think I even did launch the first trial season of NSL with a given theme, but then it became way too complicated and I started overthinking it, and it was it was just too much. So I ended up ditching the idea, and it just became name of season, and then that's it. But what you're saying makes sense. Okay, Jack, what should be the first themed season be about? What movie or what world?
Ooh. I mean, people voted for the Rick and Morty background, but that's just my first idea.
Could be a Rick and Morty themed. I'm rewatching Rick and Morty right now with my partner, so I'm very very much up to date, and I remember everything. It's fresh in my brain. Should we do? Okay, I'll look. I can't promise anything. There's a lot. There's a lot of a lot of things going on my side. As I mentioned on the previous community call, I'm taking over some new responsibilities, and it's kind of brutal. But if I can, I will definitely think about some theme, and it could actually be Rick and Morty, since the community actually voted on Rick and Morty. Yeah, let's go. All right, no promises there though. So give me some time to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. But that brings us to the end of this call. We're up against our time, so don't wanna take up any more of yours, Jack. Big thanks for joining me today. I learned a lot, so big thanks for that. Any closing remarks that you want to share with the community?
Yeah, just again, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for contributing, and yeah, it means a lot to us.
It definitely does. I second that, ladies and gentlemen. Big thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the amazing questions. One thing that I will mention before we wrap up here, I sent you a link earlier during this call to the first NIP proposal, NIP 1, which I said which, as I said, is going live today along with NIP2. So these are important proposals. If you operate a NIM node, please make sure to vote. These are very important for the future of the network. But we ended up deleting the first one because I put some typos there, and I forgot to add the option of abstaining from the vote. So we're going to be republishing that and NIP2 after this call, and we're going to be sharing all of this with you guys. So keep an eye on the operator channels. We're going to configure a pretty long window, so we're going to have 20 days for voting. So make sure to vote. If you have any questions about the vote or the options, or how to add your Nym wallet to Kepler, make sure to let us know. We're here to help, and happy voting, everyone. Thanks for participating. Big thanks again, Jack, for joining me today, especially on such short notice. I think this was fun. So thank you for joining. And as Rocio said, you know what time it is? It is POAP time. So as you know, there's this little tradition here on Nym community calls that we commemorate you guys hanging out with us with a little POAP that you can collect. So you need to go to the usual place, which is nym.com/go/POAP, and you need to enter the secret phrase, which is, drum roll, well, it'll show up in chat, Earlybird. Yes, with a capital E, please. So that's your secret phrase. Make sure to do it quick, because there's, I think, a 15-minute window to claim your POAP. And lastly, I will say, which I always forget to say, it is in my show notes, but I always forget to say it. If you like this video, please drop us a like. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, drop a subscribe, because those are the YouTube things, and let's feed the algorithm. The algorithm gods are very happy when you like and comment and subscribe and all of that good stuff. With all of that said, I think I've been rambling enough for today, so I will let you guys go. Big thanks for joining me today, and see you next time.